We're getting ready to rush. Like, look at all the people already starting to line up.
Alabama is the top sorority recruitment in all of the country.
Rush consists of 4 highly competitive rounds.
Let's be honest, I probably would not be going to Alabama if it did not blow up on TikTok.
We started shooting October 2021. We finished the project December 30th, 2022. So I think that's 15 months. We interviewed probably over 50 people for this film. There's 31 participants that ended up in the final cut. Filming during Rush, we had about 15 people, but I would only travel to my subjects with cinematographer, assistant camera, and a sound recordist. Most of the film was a Canon on a Ronin. I don't know, millions of hours. No, I would say hundreds of hours of TikTok.
I'm nervited, which is like nervous and excited.
What interests you about Bama Rush?
So I wanted to make a documentary about the sorority system in America since 2018. It first sort of piqued my interest during the Me Too movement, because I started to think, wow, what is it like to be a young woman right now in the Greek system during this age of consent? It was a world I didn't know about. And I like to get sort of deeply embedded in a world that I just don't know anything about. This is pre-viral sensation, and I'm speaking with Vice Studios about my new ideas, and this is one of them. They say, that sounds great. A month or two passes, and suddenly Bama Rush is going viral on TikTok. They called me back and they said, do you want to go to Tuscaloosa? And I said, yes.
How did you try and keep it fair, but also honest?
Yeah, it's a fine line, you know. I don't want to tear people down. I want to celebrate people in the films that I make. We really see the young women in this film, the ones that continued filming through the end. We see a real change in all of them, I think. You know, they really go on the journey. And to show that real humanness was really important to me, and to show the process was really important to me. It was incredible for me at like 41 years old to be like back in college with these gorgeous girls who I was like kind of just intimidated by growing up, thinking like, well, if I had a blonde ponytail, then everything would be okay. And then to find out that if you have the blonde ponytail, it's like a little duh, but like you have the blonde ponytail, and guess what? You're still struggling with all the same things that I was struggling wearing that wig. I mean, that's a profound thing.
With recruitment, people like literally look at you like you are in college majoring in sorority, almost like a little doll in your fake University of Alabama world, in your little sorority doing your, tiny little tasks. Everyone's putting their best out on social media.
How did you go about finding your subjects?
So we reached out to young women on social media. College students tend to put their school in their bio. So it was very clear who the Bama kids were. And we reached out to them. And, we reached out to hundreds of young women, and we received a lot of resistance, actually, right from the start. They told us that they actually couldn't speak to anyone in the media, that it was against the rules of their sorority. I had to reimagine sort of my creative approach. And I started to think, well, if they're not in the sorority system yet, then perhaps we can get to know these young women by following young women who are rushing to become a part of the sorority system. And that's sort of how we created the narrative. Once I was able to get on a Zoom like this and sort of explain my creative approach and say, like, I want to talk about young womanhood through the lens of the sorority system at the University of Alabama, like this is like something much larger than just Rush. This is about belonging. This is about how you feel. This is about what you're up against. Then active members said, you know what? I trust you and I understand your vision and I'm going to participate.
Who are you filming for?
Not to be dramatic, but this documentary could be the end of Greek life as we know it.
You knew right away there was going to be resistance, but there is a point in this documentary where the resistance becomes quite scary.
I think there's room for improvement. I also think there's incredible things. And I also think that there's things that are not so great. If I knew that if I stood in my truth and stuck with my intention, that there was nothing to be afraid of. Because I do believe when people see this film, they will understand that it's so much more than what they fear or what they think it could be. Sorority culture has not been portrayed well in mainstream media. And so I understand. But, once the resistance was really clear, we just kept a low profile and we tried to just be like small and nimble and like not cause a scene or cause a fuss, and just like really get to have these sort of quiet moments with these young women to really learn about them and really learn about their experience.
The rumor on TikTok is that they were wearing microphones in bracelets.
She got kicked out of Rush.
Are you kidding me right now?
There was a great scene where you say, you've never lived until you've waited for a text from an 18-year-old in regards to Shelby, who dropped the documentary. How did that feel, losing her? Have you been in contact with her? Is she doing okay? And what did it feel like losing that subject?
I was devastated because I just felt like, I thought we had an understanding about what this movie was, but it just shows you the power of the system. The desire to belong is so great that like nothing could jeopardize that. And the desire to be a part of the sorority system is so great that nothing could jeopardize that. I also really hope she watches the movie and sees that it's so much more than what that rumor was saying it was.
I'm curious, was there ever a time where you kind of had to rally the crew?
I definitely had to rally my team. I mean, especially my cinematographer, like we couldn't pull a camera out in Tuscaloosa. And so we had to be so careful and so strategic. And that was very hard after having so much creative freedom for 9 months to have to be like, I don't know what we're going to do. I guess maybe like we had to shoot some stuff on iPhones, and then we didn't, we got to get back on the Ronin. But the morale got low. My own morale, as like, when you're the director, you're the leader, you're like the head camp counselor. I had to dig deeply into my inner resources to continue going, but I had to keep pushing because of my intention. This is a movie about what it means to be a young woman right now. We are not doing what they're saying we're doing. And I had to work very hard to just maintain like this really positive attitude, and also for my subjects to say like, you know who I am. I haven't changed. Nothing is different. This rumor is untrue. And we're going to keep going as we've been going. And they were amazing.
People assume what you're going to be like as a woman in a sorority. Oh, why are you trying so hard? Like, you should just get a husband. What? I'm not really a sorority girl. I'm a woman in a sorority. And it's not the same thing.
I'm curious, when did you decide that you were going to include your voice in this documentary?
The decision to sort of put my own story into the film was a really difficult decision. In speaking with all of my the participants in the film and speaking with all of them, I would end up, because we were really talking about belonging, I would end up organically telling them my own story in college, like as this way that I felt like this connection to what they were going through. Like I just would say like, yeah, this is so interesting because like my experience, like I used to wear a wig and I took my wig off my sophomore year of college, and I would tell them the whole story. And to like a nodding head and to like, I identify, and like this incredible thing was happening because I was realizing that I just was so similar to these young women, even though I couldn't have felt further from them and their experiences. So my editor said around January, he was like, I think you need to be in this movie. And I was like, what? No. I'm behind the camera. I'm not in front of the camera. That's not my thing. I don't do that. That's not my style. I'm a fly on the wall. And then I realized at a certain point that if I was going to create the empathy that I felt was necessary for the young women in this film, I had to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and say like, me too. I also wanted to belong. And this is what I did.
Was there a point when you realized the documentary you wanted to make without you was impossible. Is that what it became? I'm curious. You're like, this, we can't make this without including the fact that our production's being stopped.
It became like impossible for me not to be in it, because also what I was trying to get across, and I think it does come across, I've been told it comes across, is that there's this real, not disdain, but there's no celebration of individuality, no real celebration of individuality when I'm speaking with young women and they're telling me that they have to dress a certain way for Rush and their hair has to be a certain way for Rush. You have to stand out but fit in. And so I started to really think like, oh, like where would I fall into this? And then when I had to like actually wear this wig in order to continue filming, I was like, there's so much more here. And this has to be a part of it. It's a symbol.
There's a big scene where you're in the car and you take a shot of the wig on the dash. He said, it feels good to be back. Is that actually how it felt? Was it a huge release to be done shooting?
Yes. Oh my God. A wig is so sweaty in Alabama in August. And, you know, that was my life for 14 years. I wore a wig when I played soccer. I mean, I wore a wig when I went swimming. I never took that wig off my head. I mean, I talk about it in the film. I wore the wig every single day of my freshman year. I slept in it. This is like so much better. And I actually shot that video on my iPhone myself, because I was like, I think I was just planning on sending it to like a friend or something. And it was a real moment. I was relieved to take that wig off.
Sorority recruitment's a game. You have to know how to play it. Because Greek life is everything at Alabama.